Once upon a time in the sun-warmed village of Ojo, nestled between two wide rivers and green hills, there lived a gentle girl named Amora. She was just 13 years old, with kind eyes, soft skin like ripe mango, and a heart as pure as rainwater. Amora had once known joy. She used to live with her mother, Adeobi, who sang as she cooked and prayed as she bathed her child. They were poor but peaceful. But everything changed the day her mother fell ill. The sickness came fast and hard. In just 3 months, Amora watched the only person who ever loved her fade away like morning mist. When her mother took her final breath, Amora clutched her hand and cried until her voice disappeared. Her father, Obina, was a traveling trader. He sold spices and leather goods in cities far from home and only returned once every few months. When he heard of his wife's death, he was devastated. But with work pressing and enemies in business growing, he made a quick decision. He sent Amora to live with his older sister, Mama Kemi, in the city of Enuwa, far from the comfort of her old life. "You will be safe there," he said, hugging Amora tightly at the village station. "Your auntie will treat you like her own daughter. Just obey her and be good." Amora nodded, tears drying on her cheeks, her voice still lost since the funeral. She wore a plain blue dress and carried a small bag with her mother's wrapper tucked inside. That was all she had left. The new home. The house in Enuwa was big, 3 bedrooms, tiled floors, a high gate with a barking dog, and potted flowers on the porch. But the warmth of the house ended at the walls. Inside, the air was cold. Not from the fans or air conditioning. From something else. Mama Kemi stood by the door, wearing a wrapper tied tight around her chest and a frown that looked permanent. "So, you are here," she said, eyeing Amora from head to toe. "Your father said you don't talk anymore." "Good. Maybe you'll be more useful." Beside her stood her daughter, Ifunanya, a year older than Amora, dressed in a shiny pink gown and chewing gum like it was her birthright. "She looks like a broomstick," Ifunanya laughed, walking around Amora. "Skin like dust and hair like mop. Where did she crawl from?" Mama Kemi didn't stop her. She only sighed and pointed. "That room at the back, beside the store. You'll sleep there. No noise. No trouble. If you don't walk, you don't eat. Understood?" Amora opened her mouth but no sound came. She simply nodded and dragged her little bag to the room. It wasn't really a room. It was more like a storage closet, barely wide enough to stretch both arms. A thin mat lay on the floor beside a sack of charcoal and boxes of old shoes. But Amora didn't cry. She simply sat down and wrapped herself in her mother's cloth, whispering inside her heart, "Mama, help me be strong." The life of a shadow. The days that followed were long and harsh. Amora woke before the sun. She swept the compound, washed clothes, scrubbed toilets, and cooked food she was not allowed to eat. Mama Kemi would say, "Leave the food. Go and wash the plates." And Amora would obey. Ifunanya mocked her daily. "Slave girl," she would chant. "Village rat. Dumb goat. Mute monkey." Sometimes she would pour water on the floor and call Amora to clean it, then laugh and kick the bucket over again. Amora never fought back. She never shouted. She never even frowned. She simply walked and prayed. She prayed in silence. She prayed with every brush of the broom, every stir of the pot, every tear that slid quietly down her face at night. She held onto her mother's wrapper and whispered into the folds, "Mama, see me. I'm trying to be good." The father's silence. Weeks turned to months. Obina didn't return. At first, Amora believed he was just busy. Then she hoped maybe he had sent a letter. But nothing came. Not a call. Not a message. Nothing. Ifunanya made sure to remind her. "Your father has forgotten you," she would say. "Maybe he found a new family. One that doesn't come with a mute rat like you." Mama Kemi joined in. If he doesn't send money next week, you'll stop eating here. I'm not running a charity. Amora just nodded and continued walking. But inside her, something began to change. Not hate. Not anger. But a small flame of strength. A silent fire. The market day. One hot afternoon, Amora was sent to the market with a long list of items to buy and a heavy basket. As she walked along the busy street, she passed a small fruit stall where an old woman sat selling mangoes. The woman looked up and smiled. Her eyes were cloudy with age, but sharp with wisdom. "Young girl," she called. "You look like one who carries more than just this basket. Come." Amora paused, unsure. The woman reached into her bag and pulled out a tiny pendant on a leather string. It was shaped like a leaf, with markings like roots on the back. "Take it," she said. "It is not for fashion. It is for protection. But only if your heart remains pure. Wear it when no one sees." Amora hesitated. She had no money to give. But the woman waved her hand. "No payment. Only promise, keep your goodness, no matter how hard it gets." Amora took the pendant and bowed deeply. She tied it under her clothes when she got home. That night, she dreamed of her mother for the first time in months. In the dream, her mother stood by a river, smiling, reaching out her hand. And in the distance, thunder rumbled. The sun rose slowly over Enua, casting gold across the rose-colored rooftops. Inside Mama Kemi's house, Amara was already awake. She had swept the compound, washed the dishes, and cleaned the living room, all before Ifinanya even stirred from sleep. Her feet ached, her back was sore, and her stomach growled from missing dinner the night before. But she didn't complain. Not once. She wore her silence like a shield. Around her neck, beneath her dress, the old woman's pendant hung gently against her skin. She had started wearing it every day since the market. It gave her a strange feeling, like a hug no one else could see. That morning, something strange happened. Auntie's burn. Mama Kemi stood in the kitchen, boiling yam while barking orders at Amora. "Go outside. Pluck bitter leaf from the garden. I don't want excuses." Amora nodded and stepped out. Suddenly, a scream echoed through the house. "Oh! My hand! My hand is burning." Amora rushed back in. She found Mama Kemi clutching her right hand, which had blistered from a boiling pot of water. Her eyes were wide in shock. "How did it pour on you?" Ifunanya asked, rushing in. "I didn't touch it," Mama Kemi shouted. "The pot, it tipped over by itself." She glared at Amora. "You! What did you do?" Amora opened her mouth, but no sound came. She hadn't even been in the kitchen. Mama Kemi hissed and wrapped her hand in a cloth, wincing in pain. "Useless girl. Bad luck child. Ever since you came here, my life has turned upside down." Amora looked down, hiding the pendant. But deep inside, something told her it was only the beginning. The thorns of cruelty. Later that day, Ifinanya decided to have some fun. She scattered palm oil across the corridor, knowing Amora would walk through. Then she called out, "Amora, mop the floor." Amora came running, basket in hand. Her foot touched the oil and she slipped, but something strange happened. She didn't fall. It was like something invisible held her up. Instead, Ifinanya, who was laughing from the side, suddenly lost her balance and fell hard on her back. Slam! Her scream echoed through the house. Amara turned, eyes wide. "What happened?" Mama Kemi asked as she rushed in. "She did this," Ifunanya cried, pointing at Amara. But Mama Kemi had seen the oil. She frowned. "Why is palm oil on the floor?" I was just," Ifunanya stammered. Mama Kemi shook her head. Be careful. Next time you break your leg, don't come crying. Amora helped clean the mess in silence. But that night, she couldn't sleep. She lay in her little storeroom, holding her mother's wrapper, thinking. What is happening? Is it the pendant? Or something bigger? The voice of the wind. The next week, Amora was sent to the backyard to burn some old clothes. As she tossed the torn wrapper into the flames, she heard a whisper, soft and strange. Keep your heart clean, they will fall by their own hands. She looked around. No one was there. The fire flickered. Her pendant grew warm. Amora clutched it tightly, breathing deeply. She didn't understand the voice. But something in her spirit said, don't change. Don't hate. Don't become like them. The storm begins. The following days grew even stranger. Mama Kemi's mirror cracked, without anyone touching it. Ifunanya's expensive sandals melted in the sun. Right outside the door. The house, once filled with laughter at Amora's expense, became quiet and tense. Fear slowly replaced mockery. Even their dog began to bark every time Amora walked past, then suddenly, one day, it stopped barking completely and lay whimpering in a corner. A test of heart. One night, rain poured hard over Enuwa. Thunder rumbled like war drums in the sky. Amora was told to fetch water from the compound tap. As she stepped out into the rain, barefoot and shivering, she saw a little boy, maybe 5 years old, curled under a tree, soaked and crying. Her heart ached. She hesitated. If she delayed, Mama Kemi would beat her. But she couldn't walk away. She ran to the boy. Are you lost? She asked, though her voice was barely a whisper. The boy looked up, scared and trembling. Amora wrapped her wrapper around him and led him to a neighbor's shed. She sat with him until a woman came running, crying, my son. My son. It was his mother. She hugged the boy tightly, tears mixing with the rain. She turned to Amora and said, God will bless you, my daughter. You have saved my heart. Amora only smiled, wet and cold, her eyes bright. She didn't need words to feel that warmth inside. That night, her pendant glowed brighter than ever. A new fear. The next morning, Amora brought in breakfast. Mama Kemi and Ifunanya looked at her strangely. Why are you smiling? Mama Kemi asked. What's funny? Amora just served the food, her quiet grace filling the room. Ifunanya pushed the plate aside. I don't want her touching my food. She's not normal. Mama Kemi whispered, maybe we should send her back. She's too quiet. Too strange. But they didn't dare touch her. Not anymore. That night, Ifunanya whispered to her mother, what if she's a witch? Mama Kemi shook her head. She's just a cursed child. But we'll fix it. I know someone who can help. Amora, lying on her mat in the storeroom, heard every word. She didn't cry. She didn't panic. She simply held her pendant and prayed. Whatever is inside me, let it be light. Let my heart remain good. No matter what they do. The days in Mama Kemi's house grew heavier with silence. Once filled with laughter at Amora's suffering, now every corner of the house whispered with tension. Mama Kemi no longer shouted as much, and Ifunanya had stopped her constant teasing. But their eyes, filled with suspicion and fear, followed Amora wherever she went. And Amora. She remained the same. Quiet. Obedient. Gentle. But something inside her was growing. Not pride. Not anger. But power, soft, pure, and strangely calm. Another broken thing. It started with the TV. One Saturday morning, Mama Kemi sat down to watch her favorite drama. She clicked the remote. Nothing. She banged the TV. Still nothing. Then, suddenly, Sparks flew from the back of the screen, and it went black forever. "Oh! This cursed house!" she shouted, glaring at Amora, who was sweeping nearby. "What did you do?" she snapped. Amora said nothing. She hadn't even touched the TV. That evening, Ifunanya's phone stopped working too. The screen froze and wouldn't turn back on. She wailed like someone had died. "I've had enough." Mama Kemi cried, pacing back and forth. "This girl, this Amora, she is bad luck. Since she entered this house, everything is falling apart." Ifunanya nodded quickly. "Let's take her to Baba Osho. He will know if she is possessed." Amora, sitting by the sink, cleaning beans for dinner, simply paused. She closed her eyes and whispered in her heart, "God, keep me clean. Let my pain not become poison." The market stranger. The next day, Mama Kemi sent Amora to the big market again, hoping to keep her out of the house for a while. She gave her a long list and shouted, "If anything is missing, you will sleep outside tonight." Amora nodded and took her basket. The market was crowded. Traders called out prices, children ran between stalls, and the air smelled of roasted maize and fried plantain. As Amora walked past a line of stalls, she noticed a small boy crying beside a pile of yams. No one paid attention to him. She walked up to him gently. "Are you lost?" she asked softly. No response. The boy pointed to his leg, a deep cut, bleeding slowly. His face was pale, and his lips trembled. Amora looked at the basket in her hand. Then at the boy. Then at the coins in her wrapper. She knew the money wasn't enough for both medicine and all the food items. If she returned without completing the list, her back would feel her aunt's cane. But she didn't hesitate. She picked the boy up and walked across the market to a small chemist shop. She used some of the money to buy bandages and disinfectant. She cleaned his wound with trembling hands. An older woman passing by stopped and watched her. When she saw what Amora had done, she asked, "Where are your parents?" Amora shook her head. The woman looked at her with tears in her eyes. "You are just a child. But your heart is wiser than many elders." She gave Amora a piece of roasted yam and said, "You'll be rewarded one day." The beating that never came. When Amora returned home, the basket was only half full. Ifunanya snatched it from her hand and stormed into the kitchen. "Mama." She didn't buy everything. Mama Kemi came running. "What?" "After I gave her my last money." Amora stood quietly, her hands behind her back. Mama Kemi raised her cane, ready to strike. But just as her hand came down, her arm froze in midair. She screamed. "Oh! My shoulder. It's like fire. I can't move my hand." She dropped the cane and grabbed her shoulder in pain. Ifunanya backed away. "Mama, did she do something to you?" Mama Kemi looked at Amora. Her face twisted with fear. "What are you?" Amora stepped back, scared. She hadn't done anything. "I just helped a boy at the market," she whispered. "You're a witch," Ifunanya shouted. "That's how witches act. Helping people outside but bringing curses into the house." Amora ran to her room, her small storage closet, and fell on her mat, shaking. She wasn't a witch. She was just kind. Why did kindness bring her so much suffering? That night, she cried into her mother's wrapper. The dream. She fell into a deep sleep. And once again, her mother came in a dream. This time, her mother wore a white dress and stood in a field of sunflowers. "Amora," she said, smiling softly. "You are doing well. Don't lose your heart. Your pain is not wasted." Amora walked toward her, tears in her eyes. "Mama, they hate me. Even when I try to do good." Her mother knelt and wiped her tears. That's because your goodness burns their wickedness. They cannot stand the light you carry. But hold on, child. The day is coming when truth will kneel, and the proud will fall. She kissed Amora's forehead. Just one more test. Then the fire will rise. When Amora woke, her pillow was wet with tears, but her heart was full of calm. The days passed slowly in Mama Kemi's house. But the silence was no longer peaceful, it was thick with fear. Mama Kemi barely spoke to Amora anymore. Ifunanya walked around with eyes wide and lips tight, whispering behind closed doors. The house that once mocked Amora now trembled in her presence. Every morning, Amora swept the compound. Every night, she cooked dinner. But her food remained untouched. They feared her hands. They feared her silence. They feared the strange power they could not explain. The night of shadows. One evening, Mama Kemi sat on the edge of her bed, rubbing her sore arm. The pain had not left her since the day she tried to beat Amora. I can't sleep, she whispered to herself. I can't rest. Every corner of this house feels cursed. Ifunanya stood in the doorway, pale and fidgeting. Mama, what if she really is a witch? What if she's doing something to us at night? Mama Kemi didn't respond. Instead, she stood up, opened her wardrobe, and pulled out a plastic bag. Inside it was one of Amora's old dresses, folded neatly. I'll take this to Baba Okoko, she said. Ifunanya gasped. The herbalist. Yes, Mama Kemi replied. He will know what to do. The forbidden visit. That same night, while Amora slept peacefully in her tiny room, Mama Kemi tied her headscarf tight and left the house in secret. The road to Baba Okoko's shrine was long and silent. The moon was high, and the air was heavy. Every sound felt louder in the stillness, the chopping crickets, the snapping branches, her own heartbeat. The shrine stood at the edge of the forest, its roof made of dried palm leaves, with charms hanging from every tree. She stepped inside and saw Baba Okoko, an old man with skin like wrinkled wood and eyes that seemed too sharp for his age. You bring something, he said without greeting. Mama Kemi knelt and held out Amora's dress. My niece, she said. She is not normal. Ever since she came, misfortune has followed us. We are afraid. Please, check this dress. Tell me what spirit lives inside her. Baba Okoko took the cloth and placed it on a clay bowl. He sprinkled powder over it, lit a small fire, and began to chant. The flames turned blue. Then green. Then suddenly, black. The wind outside howled as though the trees were crying. The room shook. Baba Okoko's eyes rolled back in his head. Then, silence. He dropped the cloth and stepped back. What did you see? Mama Kemi asked, her voice trembling. Baba Okoko looked at her slowly. His face was pale. His lips trembled. You fool, he whispered. Mama Kemi blinked. What? She is not a witch, he said, backing away. She is protected by something ancient. Something holy. You have wronged a child under divine shield. Mama Kemi fell to her knees. But I didn't know. You think wickedness goes unseen? Baba Okoko shouted. You beat her. You starved her. You stole her joy. And now you ask why the spirits visit your dreams. You brought this upon yourself. Mama Kemi began to weep. Her mother watches over her, Baba Okoko said, eyes still wide. That girl's pain has become a mirror, and it shows you everything you are. Suddenly, the fire flared high, and a voice echoed in the room. A woman's voice, strong, angry, and sorrowful. You tried to break my daughter, now you must kneel. An invisible force pushed Mama Kemi down, her face to the dirt floor. She screamed as something unseen struck her cheek. One blow. Then another. Baba Okoko did not move. You have awakened the wrath of a mother, he said softly. Go now. And pray the girl shows you mercy, more than you ever showed her. By the time Mama Kemi returned home, her left cheek had begun to swell. By morning, her skin was red and bruised. By afternoon, her face had begun to rot. Oh, she screamed when she looked in the mirror. What is this? Ifeanyi ran in and gasped. Mama! Your face, it's dying. They rushed to a clinic. But the nurses said they saw nothing wrong. It must be spiritual, they said. Ifeanyi cried all night. And Amora? She said nothing. She only cleaned the floor and returned to her corner. Fear becomes begging. The next morning, as Amora stepped into the kitchen to begin breakfast, Mama Kemi dropped to her knees. Please, she whispered. Don't cook for us. Don't sweep. Don't clean. Just rest, please. Amora froze. She turned slowly and saw fear, pure, shaking fear, in her aunt's eyes. Ifeanyi stood beside her mother, mouth open in disbelief. Mama, why are you begging her? Because, Mama Kemi said, tears rolling down her cheeks, we have done wrong. And now we are paying for it. She covered her face. Forgive me. Please. Amora stood still for a long moment. Then she nodded quietly and walked away. A new peace. That night, for the first time since she entered the house, Amora slept in a real bed. In her cousin's room. On a soft mattress. No one disturbed her. No one called her. No one dared to enter the room. And for the first time in her life, Amora slept with peace in her heart. 3 days passed. In those 3 days, Mama Kemi did not raise her voice once. She no longer sat on her favorite chair in the sitting room, shouting commands. Instead, she stayed locked inside her room, covering her face with a scarf that barely hid the rotting wound spreading across her cheek. Ifeanyi was no longer the proud, mocking girl who called Amora a slave. She had gone quiet, frighteningly quiet. Every time she saw Amora, she stepped aside. Every time Amora entered the kitchen, she walked out. Even the neighbors noticed. Why is Mama Kemi's voice missing from the street? One asked. Did she travel? Another said. No one could answer. Inside that once loud and cruel house, there was only silence. The whispers of guilt. Each night, Mama Kemi cried quietly in her bed. The wound on her face throbbed with pain, and her heart throbbed with guilt. She remembered the days she poured water on Amora's only mat. The days she denied her food. The night she beat her because the soup was too salty, though it wasn't. She remembered it all. Now she felt it. Each time she looked into the mirror, the face that stared back at her wasn't her own, it was the reflection of her wickedness. And that reflection was rotten. Ifeanyi's night of terror. One night, Ifeanyi jolted awake from sleep. There was a shadow in her room. Not outside, not in a dream, but right there, standing beside her bed. She froze. She couldn't scream. She couldn't move. The shadow bent toward her, and a voice, soft but thunderous, whispered. You mocked her pain. Now feel it. Suddenly, a pressure pinned her to the bed. She gasped for air. She tried to scream, but no sound came. Her whole body shook. She clawed at her own throat until, with a gasp, the pressure vanished. She rolled off the bed and ran out of the room, panting like someone who had outrun death. She burst into her mother's room. Mama! Mama! There's something in my room. Mama Kemi sat up, holding her decayed cheek. Her eyes widened. She's not ordinary, she whispered. That girl is protected by forces beyond us. What do we do? Ifeanyi cried. Mama Kemi stared into the dark corner of the room. We leave her alone, she said. And we pray. Amora's strength awakens. The next morning, Amora awoke refreshed. She sat on the edge of the bed, the same bed that was once Ifunania's, and looked out the window. The air smelled of rain. She took her mother's wrapper, folded it gently, and placed it under her pillow. For the first time, she walked into the kitchen not to cook, but to make tea for herself. No one stopped her. When Mama Kemi entered and saw her, she dropped to her knees. "Please," she said, trembling, "don't clean. Don't serve. Just rest." Ifunanya peeked from behind the curtain, watching with wide eyes. Amora looked at her aunt. Her eyes were calm, but powerful. "You made me cry for years," Amora said quietly, her voice soft yet strong. "You made me question if I was even human." Tears rolled down Mama Kemi's face. "But I am still here," Amora said. "And I am not broken." The room went silent. And then, Amora turned and walked back to her room. The shrine's final warning. That evening, Mama Kemi made a final trip to Baba Okoko's shrine, this time not in secret, but in desperation. She wore black. Her hair was covered. Her hands trembled. "Please," she begged, kneeling before the old priest. "Is there anything I can do to lift this curse? My face is rotting. My daughter can't sleep. Please, help us." Baba Okoko stared at her, his face blank. "You still don't understand," he said. "She is not the curse. You are. You brought this upon yourself." "But I'm sorry," Mama Kemi cried. "Truly." Baba Okoko rose slowly. He took a handful of white chalk and wrote on the ground. "Only mercy can unlock mercy." He looked at her with tired eyes. "If you want peace, ask her for it." Mama Kemi blinked. "You mean Amora?" "Yes," Baba Okoko said. "Ask the girl you broke. And pray she is nothing like you." The fall of pride. That night, Mama Kemi returned home and did what she thought she'd never do in her entire life. She knocked on Amora's door. Amora opened it gently. There, on the floor, knelt her aunt, the woman who made her life a nightmare. Her head was bowed. Her hands trembled. Her voice cracked. "Amora, forgive me. I did wrong. I treated you like dirt. I turned your father's house into your prison. I mocked your silence and cursed your kindness. And now, I beg you, please, have mercy on me." Tears poured down Amora's cheeks. Ifunanya stood behind her mother, also sobbing. "We were wicked, Amora," she whispered. "But your goodness, it shames us." Amora stood in silence. Then she stepped forward and lifted her aunt gently from the floor. "I forgive you," she whispered. "Not because you deserve it, but because I don't want your hate to live in my heart." In that moment, the pendant around her neck cracked, a tiny sound like breaking glass. The curse had lifted. The spirits had seen enough. The house that once echoed with shouts and cruelty was now filled with something strange, something new. Quietness. But not the kind Amora used to know, not the silence of fear or suffering. This time, it was the silence of change. Aunt and niece, face to face. After that night, after Mama Kemi fell to her knees and begged for forgiveness, something inside her broke, and something else began to grow. She couldn't look at Amora without tears forming in her eyes. Each time she passed her in the corridor, she whispered, "Thank you." Each time she saw her resting, she tiptoed away so she wouldn't wake her. Gone was the wicked woman who ordered and insulted. In her place was a woman humbled by her own shame. One morning, she brought a tray of food to Amora's room, breakfast served like royalty. "Eat, my daughter," she said, gently setting the tray on the bed. Amora blinked in surprise. Her aunt sat beside her, hesitated, and then spoke softly. "I don't deserve your forgiveness. But I will spend every day trying to earn it." Amora didn't speak. She simply nodded, her eyes kind. If Unanya learns to kneel. If Unanya changed too. She no longer wore her fancy dresses or curled her hair every morning. The vanity that once filled her heart had been replaced by guilt. But more than guilt, she had discovered respect. She began helping Amora with chores, not out of fear, but out of understanding. They scrubbed the floors together. Cooked together. And once, when they sat on the veranda, braiding each other's hair, Ifunanya whispered, "I was jealous of you. I thought your silence was weakness. But now, I see it was strength. You were always stronger than me." Amora looked at her, eyes wide. For the first time in years, she felt something she had never expected, sisterhood. The healing begins. Strangely, as love returned to the house, something else happened. Mama Kemi's face began to heal. The dark patch on her cheek started fading, the rotting wound shrinking. By the end of the week, only a faint scar remained. "Is this even possible?" she asked aloud, touching her cheek in the mirror. It was Ifunanya who answered. "Maybe the spirits just wanted to see if we could change." They had. Auntie's confession. One cool evening, Mama Kemi invited Amora to sit beside her under the mango tree in their compound. A soft wind blew. Birds sang lazily as the sun began to set. Mama Kemi reached for Amora's hand and held it gently. "I was never truly angry at you, Amora," she said, her voice shaking. "I was angry at your mother. She married my brother when I thought he would marry someone else. I let my jealousy poison me. I watched you grow, looking more and more like her, and I let hatred fill me." Tears rolled down her cheeks. "But you broke that curse. Not with power. Not with revenge. But with mercy." Amora squeezed her aunt's hand and smiled faintly. A home rebuilt. As the weeks passed, the house transformed. Amora now had her own room, painted light blue, with fresh curtains and a bed of her own. Ifunanya placed a small flower pot on her window. Mama Kemi brought her a new dress and combed her hair each morning. Even the neighbors noticed. One woman asked, "Is that not the same girl they used to treat like a maid?" "She looks like a queen now," another replied. And she did. Not because of wealth or gold, but because of something richer, peace. But one question remained. Despite all the healing, one hole remained in Amora's heart. Her father. It had been almost 3 years since he left. No letters. No calls. No word. She never stopped believing in him. But sometimes, at night, she would hold her mother's wrapper and whisper, "Papa, where are you?" Mama Kemi saw the sadness in her eyes and felt fresh guilt. "I lied about your father," she said one day. "I told you he abandoned you. But the truth is, I don't know where he is. I'm sorry." Amora only nodded. She was used to pain. But deep down, she still hoped. Hoped that one day, he would return. The final dream. That night, Amora had another dream. She stood by the river again. This time, her mother stood beside a tall man, Obina, her father. He turned to her, smiling with tears in his eyes. "I'm coming, my child," he said. "I never forgot you." Amora woke up with a gasp. She ran to the window and looked into the night. The air was quiet. But in her heart, she knew something was coming. It was a peaceful evening in the town of Enuwa. Birds glided through the orange sky. Smoke curled lazily from cooking fires. The sounds of children laughing floated through the air. Inside Mama Kemi's house, Amora sat in her room, reading a borrowed book by the window. The house was quiet, but not the cold silence of fear. Now it was the silence of peace. Ifunanya was in the kitchen, humming a soft tune as she stirred a pot of jollof rice. Mama Kemi sat outside, peeling oranges, occasionally glancing at the gate as though waiting for something. Or someone. And Amora. She was finally happy. But her heart still held a small, silent ache. Her father. Where was he? Why had he never come back? That question had echoed in her soul for 3 years. She whispered to herself, maybe one day. And then, a knock at the gate. The return. Bang. Bang. Ifunanya paused her stirring. Mama Kemi froze with an orange half in her hand. Amora stood slowly, her heartbeat suddenly wild in her chest. Another knock. Then a voice, tired but strong. Is this the home of Mama Kemi? Please, I am looking for my daughter. The voice. Amora knew that voice. She ran. Through the corridor. Past the kitchen. Out the front door. She swung the gate wide open. There, standing in dusty clothes with a torn bag and tear-filled eyes, was her father, Obinna. Papa, Amora whispered, her lips trembling. He dropped his bag and opened his arms. My child. She ran into his arms, holding him so tightly it hurt. He smelled of old journeys and forgotten days, but to her, it was the sweetest scent in the world. I thought I lost you, she whispered. I never stopped trying to come back, he said, stroking her hair. Not for one single day. The missing years. They sat together in the living room. Mama Kemi and Ifunanya sat nearby, too stunned to speak. Obinna held Amora's hand and began his story. After your mother died, I took a business trip to the north. I was approached by traders, men I thought were genuine. But they lied. They made me transport goods I didn't know were stolen. I was arrested, imprisoned, without trial, for years. He looked down. I had no way to reach anyone. No phone. No money. Nothing. Every day, I prayed to see you again. Tears poured down Amora's face. But I never stopped believing, she said softly. Not even when Aunty said you abandoned me. Mama Kemi lowered her head in shame. I lied, she confessed. I was bitter, jealous, and wicked. But this girl, your daughter, she saved me. With her heart. Obinna looked at his sister. At her faded scar. At her trembling hands. I forgive you, he said, his voice calm. But you must never forget what she went through in this house. I never will, Mama Kemi said. I carry it with me every day. A new chapter begins. Days turned into weeks. Obinna stayed. He took up small work in the community, cleaning, repairing things, running errands, anything to rebuild a life with his daughter. But the real work happened inside the house. Amora was no longer a servant or a shadow. She was treated with honor. She attended school again, this time proudly. Ifunanya walked beside her like a true sister, sharing notes, braiding her hair, laughing by her side. Mama Kemi cooked with love, not anger. She told Amora stories of her mother, good ones, filled with warmth and memories she once buried in bitterness. And every night, Amora slept in her bed with a full stomach, a peaceful heart, and a father who whispered, "Good night, my star." The village learns the truth. The neighbors whispered about the transformation. That's the same girl they once treated like a housemaid. She's the one that healed the whole family. Even the house feels different now. But Amora didn't seek praise. She simply smiled. She had learned the greatest lesson of all. Kindness is a power that doesn't make noise, but it moves mountains. The final lesson. One Sunday morning, Amora stood before her classmates at school, holding a small note card. She was asked to give a short speech on forgiveness. She cleared her throat and spoke. Sometimes, those who hurt us are already hurting inside. When we forgive, we don't just free them, we free ourselves. My name is Amora. I forgave the people who broke me. And now, I live in peace. Her voice, once lost in grief, now rang with courage.